Welcome back to Auto News Talk. It's really fantastic to have you with us for this one
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to dig into this.
because we are going to strip back the paint and look at the structural integrity of the auto industry right now. And honestly, it looks like the frame is buckling a little bit.
It is definitely under a massive amount of load. I mean, I'd argue more than we've seen in a decade.
We're looking at a stack of industry reports here that paint a picture of a business getting squeezed by two massive opposing forces. On one side, you have this invisible high-stakes war over AI technology and silicon.
Right.
And that's quietly making it harder and significantly more expensive to actually build a car.
That's the supply chain side, the input.
Exactly. And then on the other side, you have the people buying the cars. Consumers are becoming louder, less patient, and frankly, much more litigious when things go wrong.
It's a classic pincer movement. You have rising complexity and cost on the input side and declining trust and patience on the output side.
And the research we're doing a deep dive into suggests that the traditional ways of fixing this, just, building a better car or running a louder ad campaign, aren't going to work anymore. The whole battleground has shifted.
It really has.
So that's our mission for this segment of Auto News Talk. We aren't talking about 0 to 60 times or leather stitching. We are talking about surviving this trust gap while battling a global silicon shortage. So lay out the map for us. Where are we standing right now?
Imagine walking through a minefield. That is the dealership landscape right now. The mechanics of the vehicle are becoming incredibly sophisticated, almost too sophisticated for the current supply chain to support comfortably. But the mechanics of serving the customer, in many places, they are just falling apart.
Falling apart feels like a really strong term. Is it actually that dire?
The data absolutely backs it up. We often get fixated on the shiny stuff, the horsepower, the battery range. But if you look at the reports we've got, the companies that are going to survive this squeeze aren't the ones with the fastest cars. They're the ones mastering operational basics and digital reputation.
The unsexy stuff.
The incredibly unsexy stuff. But that is exactly where the war is being lost.
Well, let's look at the casualties then, because we have data here from the Motor Ombudsman regarding consumer pushback, and the numbers are, well, they're surprisingly aggressive.
Aggressive is the right word. The consumer isn't just disappointed anymore, they are taking action.
The headline figure from their report is a 14% increase in used car disputes. Now, I want to challenge you on this right out of the gate. In isolation, 14% sounds like a standard year-over-year fluctuation. Markets go up and down. Is a 14% bump really that alarming?
You have to look at the denominator there. 14% is the spike, but the base is massive. We are talking about a market where millions of used cars change hands. According to the Ombudsman's data, used cars now account for 40% of all the cases they open.
Wait, 40% of their entire workload across new cars, service, repairs, everything is just people unhappy with their secondhand car purchase.
Correct. To put that into a concrete metric that really brings it home, roughly 1 in every 420 used car transactions now ends in a formal dispute.
1 in 420. Okay, playing devil's advocate again. That actually sounds kind of low. If I'm a dealer, I'm thinking, great, 419 people are happy.
That is the trap. That's exactly the dangerous thinking the report warns against. That one is just the person who is angry enough to file formal legal paperwork and go to an ombudsman. That takes time, effort, and a lot of anger.
Right, it's a huge hassle to file a dispute.
Exactly. For every one person who goes nuclear like that, there are probably 50 who just left a 1-star review and told 10 friends never to buy from you. That 1 in 420 is just the tip of a very large iceberg of dissatisfaction.
Okay, that puts it in perspective. It's a signal of a broader sentiment. So what are they so angry about? I assume it's clunkers. The engine falls out 3 days later.
You would think so. And mechanical faults, specifically engine issues, are a big chunk. They make up about 35% of the complaints. But here's the twist. They aren't the #1 problem.
What beats a broken engine?
Bad service. The top complaint driver, sitting at 40%, is customer service issues.
So people are more upset about how they're being treated than the fact that the car is actually broken.
It's the friction. The report details things like undeclared modifications, selling a car that has been tweaked or tuned without telling the buyer, or incomplete vehicle histories. But the biggest trigger, the thing that really pushes people over the edge, is simply silence. The report explicitly mentions absent responses to customer queries.
Being ghosted.
Exactly. If your car breaks, you are annoyed. That's natural. But if you call the dealer, and they don't pick up. Or they say, we'll call you back, and they don't. Now, you aren't just annoyed, you are furious. That is when you file a formal dispute. You aren't fighting the car anymore, you're fighting the disrespect.
It's the feeling of abandonment.
It is. And this connects directly to the front door of the dealership. Because before a complaint is even filed, buyers are voting with their feet based on digital red flags.
Right, which brings us to the StartLine used car tracker. They looked at why buyers walk away before even signing anything.
This is the pre-sale friction.
Yeah.
So we have the post-sale anger with the ombudsman, and now we're looking at the pre-sale hesitation. And they mirror each other perfectly.
Right.
StartLine found that the #1 red flag for used car buyers isn't the price. It isn't the mileage. It is poor online reviews.
A staggering 62% of consumers said they would reconsider a purchase if the dealer had bad ratings.
62%. You could have the perfect car priced $5,000 under market value, but if your Google reviews are sitting at 2 stars because you didn't call someone back last month,
You're invisible.
you effectively don't exist to that buyer. They scroll right past you. And guess what the second biggest red flag was?
I'm gonna guess broken cars again.
Nope. Slow or unresponsive communications. That was at 61%.
There it is again. The silence.
It creates a vicious cycle, doesn't it? The Motor Ombudsman report shows that poor service leads to formal complaints. The StartLine data shows that the visibility of that poor service via reviews scares off the next batch of customers. It's a reputation death spiral.
And it seems so avoidable. Answering the phone is free. Replying to an email costs nothing but time.
It's free in terms of cash, but it requires operational discipline, which seems to be slipping. Dealers are perhaps cutting corners on staffing to save money, not realizing it is costing them sales.
But here is where the plot thickens. We have established that dealers are struggling to keep customers happy on the service side. But at the exact same time, the manufacturers are struggling to even get the parts to build the cars in the first place.
This is the other side of the vice. We are moving from the showroom floor to the global server farm.
This is where the story gets a little sci-fi and where the costs start to really bite. We've got a report here detailing a memory chip crunch. Now, I have to stop you because I thought we were done with this. I thought the chip shortage was a headline from a few years ago. Didn't we solve this?
We solved chip shortage 1.0. That was about microcontrollers, the relatively simple, low-tech chips that roll down your windows or control your seat heater. We had a supply bottleneck. We fixed it. Production resumed. This is different. This is chip shortage 2.0. And it is a war for memory.
Memory like storage, like a USB drive.
Specifically, DRAM dynamic random access memory and NAND flash.
Okay, for the non-engineers listening, and for me, what is the difference and why does my car need them?
Think of DRAM as the car's working memory. It is what the computer needs to think right now. Processing the camera feed for lane assist, running the infotainment, calculating battery usage in real time. It has to be super fast. NAND is a storage, the bookshelf. That is where your maps, your operating system, and your user profiles live.
Got it. Fast thinking versus long-term storage.
Precisely. And modern cars are basically data centers on wheels. The report highlights that the average vehicle recently held about 90 gigabytes of memory.
90 gigabytes, that's more than my laptop had just a few years ago.
And that is just the average recently. That number is projected to triple in the very near future as we move towards software-defined vehicles.
So the demand from the auto industry is skyrocketing. We need more memory than ever before. But here is the kicker from that report. The auto industry has a new competitor for those exact same chips. And this competitor has deeper pockets, faster growth, and an insatiable appetite.
AI data centers.
Exactly. The report notes that giants like Samsung and Micron, the people who actually make these chips, are pivoting their production lines. They are moving capacity away from legacy uses and toward the high-performance chips needed for AI infrastructure.
It's a physical restructuring. In fact, Micron is even closing its crucial consumer RAM brand entirely to prioritize data center chips. They're effectively saying, sorry consumer stuff, sorry auto industry, AI pays better.
That is a massive shift. So the same companies that make the memory for our dashboards are basically deprioritizing us.
Effectively, AI training models require high bandwidth memory, or HBM. It is incredibly profitable. So, if you are Samsung, why would you make cheap NAND for a Ford Fiesta when you can make HBM for NVIDIA?
So this isn't just a hard-to-find problem. This is an outbid ChatGPT problem.
And that means cost. Ford has already explicitly signaled price pressure regarding memory. They are securing supply, they will get the chips, but they are planning for higher costs.
And who pays for that higher cost? Eventually, the consumer.
Or the dealer's margin gets squeezed.
Okay, let's pause and look the map again. This is the squeeze we talked about in the intro. You have costs rising on the manufacturing side because AI is eating the chip supply. That squeezes margins. Then you have consumers who are already on edge, demanding better service and walking away if they read a bad review.
It creates a massive tension. How do you maintain profitability when your inputs are getting more expensive, but your customers are demanding more high-touch service, which also costs money to provide?
Well, that is the billion-dollar question. If you squeeze the customer too hard on price, they walk. If you cut service to save money, they sue you or leave a bad review. So let's talk solutions. The industry isn't just sitting there waiting to die. We have sources here that point toward two main strategies: integration and education.
Right. If you can't make the chips cheaper, you have to make the process smoother. You have to remove the friction to justify the cost.
A great example of this comes from a report on a platform called JumpTech. They are tackling one of the biggest friction points in the industry right now: getting an electric vehicle charger installed at your house.
This is a classic service gap. Think about the customer journey. You buy an EV, you're excited, you sign the papers, then the dealer hands you the keys and says, "Good luck charging it, go find an electrician."
It's like buying a phone and being told to go wire your own wall socket.
Exactly. Now you have to find a contractor, get a quote, wait for parts, schedule the install. It is a massive hassle.
Yeah.
And delays there lead to delays in handing over the car.
Which leads right back to those slow response complaints from the start line and ombudsman reports.
Correct. So JumpTech has launched this integrated dealer platform. It connects the dealer's CRM directly to the home charger installers.
CRM being the customer relationship management software the sales team uses.
Yes. So instead of handing you a business card for an electrician, the dealer clicks a button right in their sales software. It creates an end-to-end workflow from the initial inquiry all the way to a commission charger.
So the dealer can actually see the status. They aren't in the dark.
Seamless is the buzzword they use, but yes, the visibility is key. And they are even planning a set price package, around £799 all in, so the customer knows exactly what they are paying up front.
That is huge. It takes a complex, messy problem wiring up your house and turns it into a simple tick box part of the sale.
And think back to the Ombudsman report. What was the complaint? Uncertainty. Silence. This platform kills uncertainty. If you can tell the customer, your charger is scheduled for Tuesday, your car arrives Wednesday, you build trust. You avoid that one-star review.
It effectively outsources the complexity.
It integrates it. The complexity is still there, but the customer doesn't feel it. That's the magic trick.
Okay, so that handles the operational friction, but what about the money? We know chip costs are driving car prices up. We know affordability is a struggle. We have a report here on dealership F&I finance and insurance. How are they adapting to this high-cost environment?
This is fascinating because F&I is usually the most painful part of buying a car. You know the drill, you agree on a price, you're tired, you just want to go home, and then you get marched into a small office to talk about extended warranties for 45 minutes.
The box. Everyone hates the box.
Everyone hates the box. And the report suggests the market is cooling. Affordability is now the main headwind.
It says here that perceived lack of value for F&I protections was cited more than twice as often as last year. People are looking at the bottom line and saying, I can't afford the extras.
Which is dangerous, because as we discussed, these cars are loaded with 90 gigabytes of expensive memory and AI chips. If that tech fails out of warranty, it is not a $200 repair. It's a $2,000 repair.
So the customer needs the protection more than ever, but is less willing to pay for it because of the sticker shock.
That is the paradox. So the strategy the industry is adopting is what the report calls a deliberate omnichannel strategy.
Omnichannel is one of those marketing bingo words. What does it actually mean in practice for a regular buyer?
It means moving the conversation out of the finance box and into the living room. It means presenting this information online long before the customer walks into the dealership.
So I'm reading about GIP insurance on my iPad on a Tuesday night.
Exactly. The data shows that 63% of dealers are now providing robust F&I info online, even though the final transaction happens in person. It is about early consumer education.
Why does that help?
Because it removes the ambush.
Yeah.
If I try to sell you a $500 warranty at the last second when you're already stressed about the monthly payment, your default answer is no. You're defensive.
I just want to leave them thinking, stop trying to upsell me.
Right. But if you read about it on the website and you understand why GAP coverage is important when vehicle values are fluctuating, or why a warranty matters when you have delicate silicon chips under the hood, You have time to process the value.
You're treating the customer like a partner in the process rather than a target.
Transparency again. It creates a rational decision rather than an emotional reaction.
It is interesting, though. The report notes that despite all this talk about AI chips in the cars, the use of AI in the F&I office itself is surprisingly low, only about 8% adoption.
Yeah, that stood out to me too. For all the hype, this part of the business is still very human. It's about trust. A chatbot can't really explain why you need GAP insurance in a way that feels empathetic to your budget.
Not yet, anyway. It seems like a missed opportunity, or maybe just a recognition that money is personal.
I think it's the latter. When costs are high and trust is low, you need a human face.
So let's step back. We have covered a lot of ground today. We've got angry customers at the Ombudsman, we've got data centers stealing our memory chips, we've got seamless charger installs, and we've got F&I moving to the website. How do we connect these dots? What is the big picture here?
I think three major themes emerge from these sources that really tell the story of the next few years in this industry.
Okay, hit me with the first one.
First, it's the tension between complexity and simplicity. The memory chip report tells us the cars are getting exponentially more complex, tripling memory. Fighting for AI chips is a nightmare under the hood. But the JumpTech example shows us that the buying process absolutely must get simpler to compensate.
You can't have a hard car and a hard process.
Exactly. The dealer has to act as a shock absorber. They have to absorb the technical complexity so the customer doesn't have to feel it. If the car is complex and buying it is complex, the customer walks.
That is a great way to visualize it. The dealer is the buffer. What is the second theme?
The transparency imperative. Look at the threads across the sources. The start line report on online reviews. The F&I strategy of explaining costs online. The Ombudsman's warning about undeclared modifications.
Hiding information is the enemy.
It is the single biggest risk to a business. In a world where everyone has a megaphone in their pocket, meaning their smartphone, you cannot fake it. The digital trail is too long. If you hide a cost or a delay or modification, you get burned. The 1 in 420 complainers will find you.
And the third theme?
The cost tension. We had a direct contradiction here that hasn't been resolved. The chip report implies costs must go up due to global supply shortages. But the F&I report implies consumers are hitting a hard wall on affordability.
Something has to give. Either the manufacturers eat the cost or the consumers stop buying.
Or you change the value proposition. The only way to resolve that tension is through value. You can't just compete on price if your costs are rising. You have to justify that higher cost through better service, like we saw in the Ombudsman report, and smoother integration. You have to be worth the extra money.
So if you are listening to this and you work in the industry, maybe you're a general manager at a dealership, or maybe you're in strategy at a manufacturer, what is the practical takeaway? What do you do with this info tomorrow morning?
So what here is that you have to kill the silos. You can no longer view your departments as separate worlds.
No more sales versus service versus IT.
It just doesn't work anymore. Think about the chain reaction. A global chip shortage in a factory impacts the vehicle price. That price impacts the difficult F&I conversation about affordability in the showroom. How that conversation is handled impacts the customer's trust, and that trust determines whether you get a 1-star review or a 5-star review.
It is one single ecosystem.
It is. A delay in the supply chain eventually becomes a customer service complaint if you don't communicate it. Everything is connected. If you are in sales, you need to understand the chip shortage. If you are in service, you need to understand the F&I pressure.
That is a powerful way to look at it. Next time you see a car price ticking up, don't just blame inflation. Think about the AI data center competing for its parts.
And next time you see a 1-star review, don't just blame a difficult customer. Think about the silence or the communication gap that caused it.
It really changes how you view the whole process. Well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive. It has been a real journey through the mechanics of the market.
It's been a pleasure to unpack this.
Before you go, I want to leave you with one final thought. We've talked about how AI is creating the hardware shortage, but we also saw that low AI adoption rate of 8% in the finance office. Keep an eye on that gap. The dealers who figure out how to use AI to solve their communication problems without losing that human touch are going to be the ones who survive the trust gap. Will they automate the busy work so humans can build the relationships, or will they just turn into spam bots? That is the question to keep in mind. Thanks for listening to Auto News Talk. We will see you next time.